Yo, it's Ibetonme. Sony just publicly admitted that Bungie cost them $765 million. Not projected losses, not paper write-offs on some earnings slide. Actual impairment charges against real assets. And the gaming community is out here acting like this is just some bad quarterly report and everybody moves on. You're trolling yourself. Now this is a full reckoning. And if you're a marathon player right now, you need to understand what this actually means for the game you're still running. So I'm cutting the cap. Alright, so now that we got that out the way, let's talk about it. Back in 2022, Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. I want to be clear about what that number actually means. See, this is not let's just pick up a cool studio money. That is, we genuinely believe this team is going to anchor our entire live service future money. So Destiny 2 was supposed to be the engine that justified the price tag, an evergreen machine that just keeps printing, and then it didn't. So Destiny 2 bled players, Bungie went through layoffs back to back, and Marathon became the bet. And this was the one move that was supposed to save everything. So we're starting with the actual numbers, because this is where it gets ugly real fast. So Sony reported a total impairment loss of $765 million against Bungie's fixed assets for the fiscal year ending in March 2026. But here's what most people are missing. See, this is not one hit, it's two separate charges. The first one came in Q2, where it was a $204 million directly pinned to Destiny 2's underperformance. And honestly, I saw that coming. I broke down the player count side of that situation on yesterday, so that video is in the link in the description if you missed it. But the second charge, see, this is the number that should have your full attention, because it's $565 million that dropped in Q4. Now that directly overlapped with Marathon's active launch window. So Sony looked at everything Bungie owns, every fixed asset, and wrote it off as a full amount. Now the goodwill stays on the books, everything else gone. And just to put that in context, Marathon reportedly had a production budget north of $250 million. So you're looking at a game that cost $250 million to make inside a studio that just cost the parent company $765 million in write-downs in a single fiscal year. As someone who used to be a regional vice president and own my own financial firm, I've done plenty of investments, and I tell you what, that is a major red flag. But let me be very clear. This is not Sony canceling Marathon, at least not today. Sony's CFO said they're committed to the game, but committed and patience are two very different things. And here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because on paper, Marathon is not a disaster. It's sitting at a 82 on Metacritic, over 90% positive reviews on Steam, and Sony-owned CFO said in an investor call the engagement and retention metrics are, quote, at a high level. So this is not Concord. Concord got universally dragged, died in 2 weeks, and got pulled off the shelves. Marathon has people who genuinely love it, but it is not selling enough to justify a $3.6 billion acquisition, and I actually called this Monday. I put out a full breakdown on exactly why Marathon is losing 8,000 players every single week. That video is right in the description. And the data is public, the trend is documented, and what Sony just admitted on the investor call lines up exactly with what I was telling you. The game has a top of funnel problem. The people who play it stay. The people who haven't tried it aren't converting. And the gap is what's costing Bungie everything right now. Now here is where Bungie's decision making gets genuinely confusing to me. Because after a rough launch, after declining player numbers, after Sony is literally writing off assets against your studio, what does Bungie do? They release Cryo Archive, a raid-like experience so demanding, so hardcore gated that you need to hit specific requirements just to access it. And even Shroud, a former pro Counter-Strike player and one of the most mechanically skilled FPS players alive, went on stream and said, and I'm quoting him directly, "Cryo Archive is insane. It's the most elaborate extraction map I've ever seen in a game ever. The loop they made is truly something special, but it is too elaborate, it is too complex, it is too much of a grind. Is your 9 to 5 grandma and grandpa going to be able to do this? I don't know." Now Shroud loves it, And he is still telling you that it is not for most people. So Bungie just doubled down on the exact mechanic that is keeping Marathon's player count from actually growing. So the hardcore players are locked in, the casual players are locked out, and a game with a $250 million budget cannot survive on a top 10% of its potential audience alone. And that math has never worked for a live service, and it won't work with Marathon. Also, do me a favor, drop me a comment below right now. Should Bungie make Marathon easier to pull in casual players, or do they need to stay hardcore and risk it all? I want to know where you're at in all this, and if you haven't already, hit that like and the sub. It genuinely keeps the lights on and tells the algorithm this is worth showing to other people. So let's talk about what actually comes next. Sony CFO Lin Tao said straight up on the investor call, they are committed to growing Marathon's user base, but committed does not mean patient forever, and Bungie has 3 real options right now, and none of them are clean. Option 1, go free to play. Now this is going to be the biggest player account spike possible. However, you are immediately burning everyone who paid full price at launch. That is not a growth move, that is a desperate move, and the community will treat it exactly like that. Option 2, add a PvE campaign or a traditional PvP mode. Now that's a smart long-term play, because it pulls in players who don't want the extraction loop but might engage with the world and the IP. But that brings in a development time problem, because Bungie just pulled most of their dev team off Destiny 2 to focus on Marathon, and I covered that in yesterday's video. The link is in the description, and that means the resources are already maxed out, because most of Bungie's resources are tied up into Marathon. Option 3, stay the course, build the content, trust the flywheel. Sony basically endorsed this on the call. Sometimes it works. For instance, Final Fantasy XIV came back from the dead, but that required a free-to-play pivot and completely rebuild the entire game simultaneously. But more content updates alone has never saved a live service game that lost launch momentum. So yeah, you knew this was coming. Every option Bungie has is gonna cost something. So here's the bottom line. Marathon is not dead. Sony said they are committed, and the CFO quote was direct, not hedged, not corporate deflection. They are building towards expanding the user base, but the pressure on Bungie to perform this current fiscal year is now immense. So whatever changes were planned for the back half of the year are coming faster now. The accessibility gaps have to close. The content cadence has to increase. And Bungie has to stop designing exclusively for the elite end of their player base. Because if the next investor call looks anything like this one, commitment starts shifting to restructuring. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know exactly how that story ends. And I made a full breakdown on Destiny 2 side of the situation yesterday. The link is below, and honestly, watch that next, because the 2 stories are not separate. They are the same story. And I'm out. Also, don't forget to like and sub. You guys have a great day. Peace.